And my body took a shift and my voice changed octave. And it was actually my dad who looked at me and was like, holy F, I think you're channeling my father. And it was like at that moment, it was permission for everybody on the other side to come through. So then my husband's mom starts trying to come through. And my husband, who, by the way, did not sign up for Girl Who Speaks to Dead People, stood up and was like, I think it's time to go to bed. And instead of consummating my marriage that night, instead of being a good little wifey, I stayed up with my parents and talked to dead people. And we all woke up the next morning with hangovers and that's not real. That didn't happen. There's no freaking way.
Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and today I am sitting down with the accidental psychic, Willow Bradner. And I'm so excited for this conversation because I have zero idea where we're going to go. And I just really appreciate you joining, Willow. Thanks for being here.
Well, I think it's super rad to be ever invited into, one, a more male-dominated space, and then two, entrepreneurship and business are it's my heart and soul. So I'm just pumped to be here. I'm pumped to be in front of a more masculine group of people and to get to talk about this weird thing that I know how to do alongside of business.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. And I love that connection, really. You know, you and I have chatted. I've hired you for a session and I found it really enlightening, really inspiring, and you are spot on with the combination. So we're going to get into some of the woo that you can bring forth, and I'm excited just to learn a little bit more context to that.
Yeah.
But real quick, just to kind of set up the context, it is this blend of a little psychic, a little woo, and the real engagement of entrepreneurship, of potentiality, of collaboration. I think that's a really, really cool piece. So
yeah,
listeners, buckle in. Let's drive. Willow, where did you grow up?
So I am I think I was ripe for this from the beginning. I'm the child of hippies, who were quite ungrounded. They were like a whole 21 when they had me, had no money to their names and didn't know who they wanted to be when they grew up. So I legitimately was born in Michigan, but raised in Colorado, sometimes back to Michigan, sometimes just kind of this random all overness is how I feel I grew up or where I grew up.
Copy that. What part of Michigan?
We were in Grand Haven for a while, but we also did some time in the Upper Peninsula.
Yep.
Yeah.
I grew up in Traverse City.
And I went to Interlochen Arts Academy near Traverse City.
Me too. Yeah. Band camp.
No, wait, really?
Yes.
What year were you, Matt?
Man, what year was that? I think that was 7th, 8th grade time frame. To do some quick math, that would have been 90, 91.
Yeah, so I was just before. I was 92, 93 for band camp, but I was in theater. Was a dork that way. And then I went to the academy as well, but I think that was 93, 94 at the academy.
That's awesome. I went to band camp. I didn't go to the academy itself, but I was first chair tuba through middle school.
Oh, nice. I dated a tuba player.
There you go.
Really dig the brass holes.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
hilarious. Where are you beaming in from right now? Where are you based at?
I'm in Salida, so I'm not too far from you.
Yeah, awesome. So Michigan, Colorado, there's definitely a connection there.
Yes.
Give us a little bit more of the story. So accidental psychic, I know from your share before you were a hairdresser and literally accidentally came into this realm.
Yeah, I mean, I stand by the accident because it's really truly my opinion that like, who the fuck chooses this? You know what I mean? Like, who decides to do this necessarily? So yeah, I was a hairdresser. I am the daughter of entrepreneurs. So my dad was a lifelong machinist. He had learned from his dad how to be a machinist, or from his father-in-law how to be a machinist. And I had grown up in a machine shop. I know how to lathe, drill press. I know how to fix cars. I know how to be dirty and do that stuff. And what I learned from that was that the hands-on-preneur aspect was really for me. So somewhere in my 20s, I really was like back in college, 4.0ing myself, like studying hard, getting after it, but having this constant thought in my head that really all I wanted to do was art and talk all day. And how could I do art and talk all day? And what was that career? And so I had gone to get a haircut. And again, child of the hippies, my mom had cut my hair with kitchen shears. Like I had never had a proper haircut in my life. I get a haircut and I'm like, oh my God, this girl's doing art and talking all day. So I quickly dropped out of college, left my 4.0 behind and like jumped into hair school. Within 9 months of hair school, had that license and realized that this was like an entrepreneur's dream journey, that I could have my own salon, that I could build a clientele, that I could learn how to scale. So I kind of really dug my head deep into entrepreneurship through the hair business. Somewhere in that 13th year of doing hair, being really successful, making that six-figure income that everybody, talks about, buying my first house, having all the things, is when I started to notice that my clientele shifted from just coming in to get hair to calling me on the weekends and coming to my house and asking me for what we would call, quote unquote, advice. And never in that time frame, now that I've told this story 200 billion times, I'll tell you that I now see it and go, so they didn't have a friend. So they didn't call their friend. They came to their hairdresser's house. They called their hairdresser for advice. It didn't occur to me at that moment that I was handing out free psychic advice or free psychic intel. I didn't know it. It wasn't until my wedding night, and again, that 13th-ish year in the business, we got married early in the morning. Of course, there was copious amounts of alcohol on board. Everybody had left the party. It was just my parents and my brand spanking new husband. We were hanging out outside. And my body took a shift and my voice changed octave. And it was actually my dad who looked at me and was like, holy F, I think you're channeling my father. And it was like at that moment, it was permission for everybody on the other side to come through. So then my husband's mom starts trying to come through. And my husband, who, by the way, did not sign up for Girl Who Speaks to Dead People, stood up and was like, I think it's time to go to bed. And instead of consummating my marriage that night, instead of being a good little wifey, I stayed up with my parents and talked to dead people. And we all woke up the next morning with hangovers and that's not real. That didn't happen. There's no freaking way. But every time after that, alcohol would touch my lips, other people's dead people started showing up. And so at an eventuation, I decided I need to train this thing out of me or I need to figure out how to use it. And so it took a year after our wedding before I was and once our daughter was born, and I realized this thing is not going away. I can't get rid of it. That I started to go, okay, how do I design a business and a life around it? And how do I learn how to manufacture boundaries? How do I build it into something that can serve and be of use for others?
Wild.
Yeah. Imagine my poor husband, right? First of all, I know that most men are skeptical to begin with anything spiritual to this degree. And then self-development aspects of all of it just makes it extra crazy. But yeah, that poor man has been on the same journey I've been, but through a totally different lens.
Hey everybody, this is Luke from Kooler Garage Doors. Just want to take a quick second to talk about our sponsor, Sommer Garage Door Openers. In our opinion, Sommers are the highest quality product on the market today. We recommend them for all of our residential garage door installs because of the variety of features they include, such as Wi-Fi connectivity and safety features such as a fixed chain, which moves along a secure rail to ensure your garage door opens quietly and safely. Click on the link in the description to learn more about Sommer garage door openers.
That's hilarious. So, all right, let's try to get as practical as possible with this. So,
Good.
I've heard of channeling. I understand it to a sense, right? It gets a little woo, but where would you draw the line? So there's a point of intuition, like
Yes.
I can intuit feelings of others. I can, imagine stuff, and there's intuition. Is that part of channeling? Is there a real distinct line? How would you draw that?
So for me, I think intuition is something that is unique and personal to every individual. I think we all have it. It's always on. If you are trusting your intuition, as they say, or trusting your gut, as they say, then you are having a sense of things as you're going through life. And I always like to use just the analogy of breakfast. Like, we wake up in the morning and yes, the habit might be to pour the cup of coffee, but what if you were to ask yourself what you're actually hungry for and then trust that? Just trust. If your body goes, you know what, I'm really actually hungry for Eggs Benedict, but every morning you're ignoring that call for Eggs Benedict because obviously it's hard to get to. I got to go out to breakfast. I got to order it in. But if you continue to ignore it, then you're basically saying no to your intuition. You're not trusting that little aspect of yourself that's trying to gift you some information about what you actually need in life. So that's like on a practical level, what I see as intuition. We also have those instincts or intuitive moments when we meet people for the first time, or, when we're booking travel, sometimes we might be like, ooh, that hotel feels better than that hotel.
Yes.
So I think intuition's built into all of us. Psychic or channeling is a different layer of connection. And that's where I have boundaries. That's where I think some of us can innately, again, choose to turn this on or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if that answers completely, but hopefully.
Well, it's starting to get there. So when you're channeling, you're hearing spirit.
So for
You're
me,
seeing
it
it?
is, So for me, it's so, like, I still don't even know how I do this thing, if I'm totally frank with everybody here. What I do is I get visions passed to me, I get words passed to me, I get feelings passed to me. So I'm playing Pictionary with your invisible people on the other side.
Yeah.
And they're giving me information as quickly as they can. And I have a really unique ability of interpreting bizarre information really quickly. And I think truly the reason I'm as good as I am at my gig is because I was a hairdresser for so long, because I worked with people for so long. I have an instinct about the humans. I have an instinct about information. And my intuition does play a role in the interpretation of how things get channeled in. But I'll get really distinct language that's so specific to the person that there's no way that I could have known that. I get information that's so distinct for the person that's sitting across from me. The biggest thing that I can say about the difference between channeling and intuition is that I have to trust that this really bizarre information that I'm receiving might actually fit the person that's sitting across from me. And the big part about channeling for me is like, I have to trust that I might get it wrong also. And so I'm offering information that doesn't feel like it fits me and that feels almost criminal sometimes to say out loud in some cases. Like, how dare I say this to this person? Like, God, I hope this fits. So channeling to me is like information that is so distinctly opposite of my instinct, so distinctly like opposite of who I am. And I'm really in their true energy. I'm really, truly in somebody else's distinct energy.
I like the word and the use of that energy, and I can resonate with that. When you're channeling, this will tee up my next question, but the channel is energetic. Are
Yes.
we communicating between dimensions? Spirit, like what? How does it? How do my guides, like, where are they?
Yeah, great question. That's a great question. So the way that it feels to me, and again, every psychic's going to be different in their explanation of this. Every book is going to tell you a different thing. And there is truly no right, because first of all, I have yet to die and come back. I have yet to go actually physically transform myself into this alternative space and come back. So everything is theorized at this stage. So I just want to be clear that I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I know really how to interpret this, but this is how it is shown to me. The guides are number one. Guides are what feel like we're human beings prior to this. They are not related to us per se. What they are related to is the energetic mastery that you're best in. So let's just say this, Matt, you are a garage door specialist. You are a garage person. You are in the contract space. You're also working deeply with customer relations. You are having to market, but you're also having to master leadership. You're having to work on sales. So your entire guiding team, when it comes to business in particular, you're going to have an entire guiding team that have all worked in construction. You're going to have a guiding team that has a legal arm to it. You're going to have a guiding team that has a mastery and mindset to help you when you are furiously feeling like you're swimming upstream and you don't know how to get something done, but you're tapping into that trust in yourself. You're going to find that you have this inner dialogue that shows up in your head where you're like, no, I got this, and this is how I'm going to do it. The solutions that come to you in your brain are going to come distinctly from your guides. So if you're looking for solution when you're trying to come up with a creative idea for marketing or sales or how to deal with an employee, etc., those aha moments, I believe, come from the guiding team. And the guiding team is able to offer those real life like aha moments because they have distinct awareness, having lived life in similar energy or shoe. So that's one way. Number two is the angels. The angels feel like they're like layer 2, level 2. The angels are really more ethereal. They build in the potential. They are, this is how it's said to me. They are the wing beneath our wings. You know what I mean? It sounds so cheesy, but it's like they sort of help us lift off. They help us get out of our own way and navigate us between what was, what is, and what will be. So when we are really struggling with the unknown, when we are really worried about what's around the bend, when we are messed up about and most of us get messed up about two things, money and love, money and love, money and love. And money is a big one. So when we're messed up about our abundance and our future in our abundance, it's the angels that I go to ask for advice from. It's the angels that I'm like, are we going to be okay? How does it feel to be 10 steps ahead? Can you show me a little glimpse of what that might feel like? And so angels feel like deja vu. Angels feel like they come in dreams and kind of offer us again some ethereal perspective or feeling that we're going to be okay. And then there's like the loved ones. Some people really want to be in touch with loved ones, meaning those who have crossed over. As a medium, I have that availability to communicate in that arena. I really struggle with this space because I want us to live here on planet Earth. And I really want us to be invested in our life. And I want us to let our loved ones be invested in their next layer. And so while I believe that they are helpful, I actually believe that it's our guides and angels that are the ones that are most useful in our day-to-day living. Our loved ones are loving and lovely, especially if we liked them. If we didn't like them, feel free to not invite them to your party, by the way. But if we loved them and we missed them, we can invite them in for just key moments of our lives, but let's not expect them to do the heavy lifting and the burdening on the other side for us.
Cool. So let's extract some practicality.
Yes.
And we don't need to do a session on how to become a channeler. However,
Sure.
in referencing guides, angels, there's got to be some practicality pieces, whether it's meditation, bike rides, whatever. What are some of the things that you will share with your clients as tools to help communicate, help open up to some of the messages from guides, angels?
Okay, so this is the biggest, most practical piece, and I am going to use a little funny language with this. I hope especially your guys can understand this. Most of us are giant cock blocks to our spirit. And what I mean by that is we have expectations. So we are such goal-oriented, ego-based human beings because A, we've been taught and told over and over and over again that if we work really hard from point A to point B, we'll get to the reward C.
Yes.
So because of that, we're not open or available to the challenges or changes that come about. We're not flexible. We're not like, hey, guides, angels, show me a better way. We're like, this is the way I've decided for it to go. And now most of the time when we're calling a psychic or we're calling a therapist or we're calling a coach, it's because of our inflexibility. And so intuitively, to be open, if we are finding ourselves, and this is generally where I would say intuition or psychic mastery is important to have in business in particular, is if you notice that you keep hitting the same roadblock over and over and over again, and you can't get past your financial energetics, you can't get past hiring the right people, you can't get past a certain sales marker that you have, what I would say is put everything down. Do go for the bike ride. Do go for the walk. And I'll even go a step further, and I'm going to really challenge every man listening to this to do this, because I curiously wonder how this will land for each of you. Could you guys go do art? Could you guys go do something that's creative and less linear? Intuition and psychic is actually talking to imaginary friends. It is actually this really creative arm of your life. We as entrepreneurs have to be creative. We have to be solutions-based. And so even though art might not be your jam, it can help get you out of the linear brain. It can get you out of that step-by-step, A, B, C, D, sort of factual activation of how you think things can go.
Okay.
Business isn't always Tetris. Sometimes we have to get really creative. If you notice that, like, people are talking a lot more about psychedelics. And psychedelics, this is what I love, is psychedelics is sort of a faster version of meditation. And I'm not like recommending everybody go out and do drugs. But the reason that psychedelics are getting so much play right now is because we don't want to sit pillow top, palms up, and wait for the psychic to come. We maybe don't want to go do art. Maybe we don't want to have to take the time that is necessary, but we have to get into that theta delta brain for the creativity to drop in and for the ego to get out of the way so that the intuition can be at play. Does that make sense? And so if you're somebody who drinks on the weekend or does marijuana on the weekends or occasionally dips into that psychedelic space, you're doing so sometimes to get out of your way and really to quiet that ego so that that inspiration, which is intuition, which is psychic, can come in and be a part of the plan or the program. So it's really, what can you do to get yourself out of the way? What can you do to shut the ego off? What can you do to uncock block the system so that you can participate in the potential and the opportunities versus the expectation?
Yes. You think every human's psychic?
Yeah. We're all made of the same material. But again, most of us have had it trained out of us.
Right.
The logic that we've been raised in is not intuitive. Like, I looked at my daughter this last year at school. She has to ask permission to go to the bathroom. So she can't even intuitively be one with her body. She doesn't get to eat when she's hungry. She has to eat on somebody else's schedule. She doesn't get to go to the bathroom when she needs to pee. She has to ask somebody for permission to do so. If she's not interested in a subject, she's forced to learn it anyway. If she really loves art and wants to do dance all day, well, she has to do math first.
Right.
So all of us have had our innate instinct, intuitiveness, psychicness trained out of us. And here we are as adults going, wait, that's actually really a useful tool. How do I train it back in? How do I trust myself? And ultimately what I want to tell everybody is all psychic is, all intuition is trusting yourself, trusting that quieter voice inside that wants Eggs Benedict in the morning, trusting that quieter voice that inconveniently wants something that your logic says you can't have.
It's so, so many things are popping up, and I kind of think we could probably talk for about 90 to 4 hours in various topics here, because there is so much. You and I talked maybe a couple of weeks ago now, and over these last just 6 weeks, I've had personally really incredible challenges in business, and it's been an existential, I'll call it existential crisis of sorts, like 46. So there's just some things shifting in business.
Yeah.
And I love identity work as well. So I know in shifting, really getting clear on what I want and then defining who I need to be in order to get that which I want, and then being able to shift the beliefs, the things that I tell myself, and then my environment, whether it's my clothing or right now we've got this huge landscaping project going on, and it's a game shifter for shifting my environment, right? So now when I see this and it gets completed today, I can be a different being of Matt. And in this conversation, like the other practical thing that bubbles up for me is go and play, because that also reduces this ego. And we mentioned, from my experience, like I was so conditioned to be very heady, very logical, very studious, and that's a disconnect from the body. And I think that intuition is going to come from the body and the heart and come in different channels, if you will, than the brain and logic.
Interesting. Let me feel that, if that feels true to me. See, that feels like a little bit cock-blocky. Just because how do we know how your intuition works for you? Because you're super logical. I'm hyper-rational, hyper-logical. I actually think that it comes in the brain. And what I notice for myself is that play is important, art is important, creativity is important for me. And it doesn't have to have a purpose or a logic. If we're logicking or purposing art so that we can be intuitive, we're still cock-blocking. We're still creating expectation. I actually think it's just simply the expectation of how things look in life that is the actual cock-block of flow. And so the sticky point is, if I'm not in flow, if I'm not feeling flexible, how do I create flexibility? How do I stretch myself to create, again, more flexibility, more flow in my life? And what that might mean is, instead of structure, I have to have a certain percentage of my day that is unstructured. I have to have a certain percentage of my week wherein I get to be spontaneous and make choices that feel wildly uncomfortable because I don't know what's going to be in that spot. And I'm going to leave that spot for intuition and magic. And I can't put anything in there. I have to leave it there. And if nothing happens, fine. But I have to leave it there, and I have to ask myself on that moment what it wants versus plan for it.
Okay.
To me, that's where we create flexibility, is having less structure. It's the structure that stands in the way of intuition, and however that's coming in for you, whether it be in the body, whether it be in the heart. I think our mastery is structure, is when we're super structured, when we're super boundaried, when we're super, again, rational and logical about everything that we do, we're not allowing in spontaneity. And that's where the magic is in that spontaneity, is in the things that break. How do we play with broken things? I think one of the classic art pieces that is the most intuitive is mosaic. The mosaic is taking something that was once beautiful, that broke into 1,000 pieces, and making it into something beautiful again.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is psychic. That to me is intuition. That to me is how we live in flow. Shit is going to break. How do we make it pretty? How do we be flexible with broken things? How do we leave room for things to get broken?
I like it.
How does that resonate?
It resonates good. I think of how much meaning I can make of experiences. And that's some of the rigidity to my logic, right? Oh, that means this. That means I'm successful. That means I'm going to go broke. That means whatever. And what I'm hearing in this analogy of mosaic is let go of the meaning making.
Yeah. And it's also just really speaking to the present moment.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, again, we're hyper fixated on tomorrow. We're not hyper fixated in the second that we're in. And again, flexibility comes with not having the plan for 2 minutes from now. And I'm not saying that we can live that way, that like life doesn't structure itself without a plan. Let's just be honest. We all have to have some planning. We have to have some structure. But can we be more in the moment that we're actually in and not 10 days ahead of where we're at? Can we be prepared that things have to break to actually get stronger and be made better? So if, again, in our businesses, in our lives, we're so rigid, that we're so afraid, that we're clinging on, that we're white knuckle gripping everything that we're doing because we're afraid it might break, if we let go of that fear of breakage and understand that we can make mosaic out of it, then we have flexibility to create.
Well said.
Yeah. And I think that's the fun part about business. I think that's the fun part about life, is when we get less afraid of death, when we get less afraid of breakage, when we get less afraid of failure, then we actually get wings to fly with. Then we're not white knuckle gripping this thing that we're doing. And then we're more in a space of trust.
Yeah, I love that. Willow, how do people reach out? How do we engage with you, learn from you, book you?
So it's real easy. My name's Willow Bradner. You can Google that shit, and my website pops right on up. You can one-to-one me or find me at a Wine and Woo near you, which is like my big group psychic reading stuff, which is just fun. I do stand-up comedy with a side of psychic on those. But if you want to dig deeper, I have entrepreneurial sessions, and I have just basic one-to-one sessions, whatever you're into, if you want to try this thing on.
That's awesome. I really, just to bolster onto that, I've gained a lot of value from our one session, and I see more coming. But it is really insightful. I mean, it moved emotion, which I always think is part of transformation.
Yes.
And just brought some really cool perspectives. So I want to give you that shout out, let the listeners know that there's some real value here, and go engage with Willow. So we'll include your website and contact information in our show notes, Willow. And man, thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. We count on your subscriptions, your likes, your shares, and I encourage you to do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, lower right-hand button. If you're on audio, download this, share it, and we look forward to having you on the next one.